Cool.
Testing.
Yeah, you want to say something, Andrew?
Hello, testing. Drink boba.
Drink boba. It's called Being Blank, and I'm your host, Maria Sid Medina. Andrew Chau.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks so much for joining me on Being Blank.
Thanks for having me. Been a fan. I've seen you on Instagram
Really?
for when did you start coming to Boba Guys? For a long time.
For a long time. So I moved to San Francisco in 2015. So shortly after that, I started coming to your store.
It's like a decade.
I know. Oh
Wow.
my gosh. And this is the first time we're actually meeting each other.
Yeah.
So I've come to your store, but didn't know you were the man behind it.
Yeah. And we met at maybe like an event, but we didn't ever talk.
Right. We never really crossed paths.
And then when you reached out, I was like, sure. Are we going to talk about boba or what's going on? And then here we are. So thanks for having me.
We're talking about boba. Okay. So how many stores do you guys have currently?
We have 21 stores, that we own.
What?
And then, it's been
I
crazy.
had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, wait.
We sell a lot of boba, yeah.
In San Francisco, in the Bay Area.
They're San Francisco, New York, and LA.
Oh, wow.
So I fly a lot between them because we don't franchise, so we own them all. And so we started in San Francisco. So we started in the Mission. So we have about 5 stores in San Francisco, and then we have in LA, Orange County, New York.
That's so cool. Okay, I want to start from the very beginning, though.
Okay.
Tell me when you guys first started. Like, how did this even come about?
How much time do we have? I would say I think of it almost like as like a dream. My co-founder and I were at a company called Timbuktu. They make these bags. And so I was like a general manager there. He was a creative director.
So nothing to do with boba.
Oh, definitely nothing to do with boba. But we do drink a lot of boba.
Okay.
I still drink a lot of boba. But he's built like a straw. I'm built like more like a boba.
Stop.
So after work, we would actually do boba runs. So we were starting to brainstorm ideas. I mean, we're in Silicon Valley, so we're like, okay, what idea do we have? We're not big, good tech guys. You know, we can do a little bit of technology, but we were thinking maybe an apparel company, an accessories company like a Timbuktu, but our style. So we were getting our closer to that, but then
It's total opposite of boba, by the way. An apparel
completely.
company?
Yeah, it's just that we drank a lot of boba. So he and I don't drink a lot of alcohol because you get the Asian flush. And so
Same, I do too.
You do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Sucks.
And so
Which back then, were there a lot of boba stores?
No.
A lot of boba shops?
No,
Okay.
we would have to drive all around the Bay Area for these things. We would drive to Mountain View for a boba shop. We'd go to Fantasia down in the South Bay.
Wow.
For those who don't know, it's like an hour, 45 minutes outside of San Francisco, right? And we go to Wonderful Foods. So we're based out of like Soma and the Mission. I text him and he'd be like, do you want to go to Wonderful Foods on Irving? So I'd pick him up and drive all the way across just to get boba.
That's crazy.
But in that drive, we would talk about ideas. And so it's in the culture of the Bay Area, right, to just always dream. But again, we never thought it would take off. So long story short, we did a pop-up and then that blew up. And the only reason we did a pop-up was like, what's the worst that's going to happen? We're not going to lose that much money making boba, but if it does well, we can maybe open a boba shop and like have free boba.
Wait, so did you even know how to make boba when you thought about even doing this pop-up?
We knew how to make drinks. I did have like a food and beverage background because my parents ran restaurants. Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't think he does, but he was always a really great designer. So it was kind of like a good combo. But no, making boba, the tapioca, no. Like, I think we documented this and we wrote about it one time. So it was on our Instagram maybe, but we were really bad. It kind of looked like a giant blob of, I wouldn't say like a brain because that's not very food friendly, but it looked like a brain. Yeah, it was like mushy. It was kind of like lumpy.
Oh, so you were actually making your own tapioca.
We did all. We went to a supermarket, like a local supermarket. Then we went to a Ranch 99. Back then, you couldn't buy this stuff online. You would have to go overseas and buy it, right? So we tried making our own. We looked at there's like maybe 4 recipes on the entire internet. This is 2009, 10, 11. There was no like recipe site. There wasn't YouTube videos of this. It was maybe like a YouTube video of making milk tea. There's some like, grandma's recipe, but there wasn't like this whole genre of now where you just do content that way.
Which is really crazy, Andrew, because back in high school is when I discovered boba drinks. And they were like all the craze in high school in Seattle. I grew up in Seattle.
Yeah.
So I guess it didn't hit the Bay Area at that point because I was in high school back in the 90s.
Oh, we had boba, but we didn't have, I would say, our version of what we now know as boba. We had Quickly Tapioca Express, so we would drink that in the I drank it in the 90s. So I got acquainted to boba because my mom, she's Taiwanese, she had read about it, and so she knew there was a boba shop in the Bay Area where I grew up. So my friends and I from high school and middle school would drive from South San Francisco, where I grew up, Daly City, all the way into the city to get boba at one of the few boba shops. And it was before the chains came out.
Yeah, I know. I would drive like 30, 40 minutes just
Really?
to get boba. Yeah, I mean, it was that good. And it was something different, right?
It was. And then it was kind of about the experience. It was the community. Like my friend Ben, I hope he doesn't. I'm going to get me in trouble. The name of the van was literally called the Shag Van. So.
Wait, what?
Yeah. It was a giant van that was looked like the A-Team van, but it beige. But it would just hold a ton of people, but you could drop it down and just be like a bed, which is hence the name.
Okay.
We're in high school. Just remember what the name was. So
okay, this is back in high school. Okay.
Yeah. And then we would not text, it was IM. We would AIM and be like, hey, boba run.
AIM. I don't know if anyone's going to know that.
Yeah,
Except
AOL
for people
for
our
those
age.
who don't know AOL. So we would say, hey, let's meet here. And we would take the van, and there'd be like 8 or 10 of us that could fit in the van. Where we'd drive all the way into the city, grab the boba, and drive back, and maybe play deuces or cards after that.
That sounds like my high school years.
Really?
Yeah, exactly.
Did we grow up? Yeah,
I mean, literally, we would just go get boba, like a group of us, and we would, like you said, it was like a bonding moment, right? It was about the experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are a ton of boba shops here in the Bay. When you and your partner decided we should maybe open one up. So how did it go from apparel to boba, though?
Long story short, I think it was how much money we had to risk at the time. And I think this is a little bit where I don't know what people believe, but how the universe works or how God works or whatever, your fate, is that at the time there was a company called Blue Bottle that was popping off. And there was another company that we were always going to called Phil's Coffee. And they were doing something called specialty coffee. And so they had like a drink called the Mint Mojito. So this is 2010. So we were really starting like this idea. And I also had gone to Asia to visit my uncle. And he was taking me out to all these different places. And one of them was like this Haagen-Dazs, which was killing it in Shanghai. Which I'm like, I thought Asian people, like Chinese people, are all lactose intolerant or something. People are like having these ice cream.
I am.
Yeah, well, exactly. So I'm like, how does the ice cream market like be so huge here? And they're all American brands, like Haagen-Dazs. So, almost on a dare from my uncle where he was like, Andrew, like, I thought you're a marketing guy. Like, why don't you make something cool that's Asian in America? And then my co-founder and I were like, why don't we do Asian Blue Bottle? Because we were drinking so much boba. He is a very well-dressed person. I'm not. I'm much more casual, as you could tell from the video.
Same.
Yeah. So, but maybe he just didn't trust me, like designing and doing supply chain stuff. So I was like, do we want to do like a drink concept? And at the time, our friends, Danny and Anthony, were doing Mission Chinese as a pop-up in the Mission District. So we were like, what if we did an Asian concept, like Asian Blue Bottle, but as a pop-up the way our friends at Mission Chinese was doing at the time. And then if it works, maybe we'd open one shop so we can get free boba. I think that was the rationale.
That's so cool. So that was back in
2010, and then we opened in 2011 as the
So
pop-up.
how did the pop-up go? Obviously successful.
It did really, really well. We was in this part of the Mission where nobody really went, and it was at first in our friend's ramen restaurant. So we either showed up in a food cart, a food truck, frozen custard, Jason, shouts to him, and then a ramen restaurant, and we were there every weekend.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And so you did that for almost a year before
A
you
year.
opened up your shop.
Yeah. And we were like, the shop broke even. So it wasn't like pop-ups, you don't make a lot of money, but it was a proof of concept, they call it. So we were thinking, all right, people like our version of boba. We were also getting hate, but as a marketer, certain types of hate are good hate. So people were like, oh, that's like hipster boba. That's not real boba. That's not authentic boba.
It's still attention, right?
Yeah. So it wasn't like, but there was a lot of people who loved it and people who grew up Asian American like us. So I was actually hurt. I was like, I'm rejected by my own people. I'm just making boba. But now I know how to say in that it's real to us. It's authentic to us. I'm Asian American. So yes, we use like nicer ingredients. We make everything in-house. To us, that was in the coffee movement at the time, right? Now it's very common, but back then it was new for coffee and had yet to be done for boba. So we were saying, well, I don't get how coffee shops can do this, but that's like Japanese style coffee, blue bottle. But why don't we do like our version, and why do we get flack for that? So I think that, but the success of the community and them always coming out for us, that probably overshadowed a lot of the criticism. And so I think that gave us a lot of momentum, because it ultimately ended up in us really putting real money in to do a actual boba shop.
That's so cool. So 2011, you open your first store here in San Francisco.
2011, we signed the end of 2011, we signed the lease. We opened at the end of 2012. Yeah.
Amazing.
Crazy. I know. I look back. I mean, this is our third store ever.
Oh, so we're sitting in your third store.
Ever. Yeah. Yeah. It was, at the time, it was our most expensive store. I did realize something that I didn't know when I started, which was I think I was naturally an entrepreneur. Because entrepreneurs are a little bit more like, they believe in a future that other people can't see.
The risk takers.
Yeah, risk takers. I actually am very conservative when it comes to money, but I'm very, very, I don't want to say risk loving, but I don't mind what people think about me. My co-founder and I are both built exactly the same way. We're very different in the way we express ourselves, but we both really have like a very strong self-confidence.
So when people were saying that you would fail, you just kept going.
Yeah, and they said plenty of that.
I was going to say, did people say that you were going to fail? I mean, not just the public, but family, friends. Were they ever asking like, what are you doing?
Yeah, my mom's.
Yeah. Really?
Well, yeah, because we had full careers at the time.
Yeah.
So my mom, I think his mom too, they weren't saying we were going to fail though. They were just like, hey, like, are you sure you want to do this? Is it going to work?
Is that her being a mom, or is that her also being an Asian mom, or both?
Both.
Yeah.
I mean, I always had that voice in my head when we were building. It was like, what would make my mom proud? And actually, the only way finally she was proud, not in a negative way, but she was proud. Actually, it wasn't like when we booked a commercial or we opened our 15th or 10th boba shop. It was actually when we were for my mom, in the Liberty Times, which is like the New York Times of Taiwan.
That's so cool.
And then that was when she shared like our story with everybody at church.
She's like, look at my son.
Yeah, exactly.
See him? Yeah. Liberty Times.
Yeah, so it's all bragging rights stuff. So that was probably it. I would say by the first or second year, we really got immune to any criticism. Like on Yelp, people were like, if we got negative reviews, they would say it was too expensive, or they were sellouts. They were, they're like bougie boba. And for us, again, we weren't more expensive than a blue bottle. And we use the same ingredients. We use Strauss milk. We make everything in-house. All the syrups are still made in-house to this day. But at the time, I could see that they couldn't get it. Shouts to big bro Eddie Huang. He had a book come out at the time. It was actually his second book, I think, Double Cup Love. But Eddie Huang from Fresh Off the Boat. He was saying something like, don't ever discount your culture. And so I had a lot of that energy in me. So I think a lot of Asian Americans, a lot of them were like, they shrank to fit the culture and they wanted to assimilate. I would say I don't really feel that. I think everybody has their own unique experience, but I always grew up very, very proud of our culture. I grew up watching Hong Kong cinema. My parents didn't have a lot of money, so our family only had like 1 or 2 TVs. And so we'd always have to watch things together. And so I grew up watching things that my parents could also watch. So a lot of Jackie Chan movies, a lot of like...
Probably in your language too.
It was Cantonese, Mandarin. So that's kind of why we do a lot of references to like, Jay Chau, or there's a movie series. My favorite is it's called Young and Dangerous. Translated, it's called Guwak Zai. It's about the triads. Very famous in Hong Kong cinema, but in America we don't really have that kind of TV show here. Like we try, but we don't. In America we don't have things as dark as that.
Yeah.
But that to me was something that I was very proud of. So when we talk about representation, which I'm sure we'll talk about, I always felt like it was less of a chip on my shoulder. It was more of like I can't wait to tell you about my stuff.
Yeah, how do you feel about being called a sellout?
I just think I don't think you see it. And maybe that's sometimes where, if anything, people will say my co-founder and I, we might be cocky. But I don't think it's cocky. I think we just know who we are. And I thank our parents for that. I thank my friends. And I could hear them tell their other friends when they would bring them here, oh, this is like Asian Blue Bottle. They're doing what they do with coffee, but for boba. And they felt comfortable bringing non-Asians. And I could see the non-Asians trying boba for the first time. When me, as a boba fan in the 90s, if I brought my non-Asian friends from tennis practice or, from different other walks of life, I think I remember they had a hard time walking into a Tapioca Express, into a Wonderful Foods, which I love. But could we do something that was a little bit more of a bridge? So I think we designed it that way. I'm a marketer by training, so I already always knew part of what we do is not about the product itself. It's about the story and the context in which it lives, right?
And so this is paying homage to both your Asian and American side, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it's Asian American. I don't think Boba Guys is trying to be Asian. We're trying to be Asian American.
Yeah.
It is ironic nowadays, though, when I go to Asia, there are people who, basically say, oh my gosh, you were the reason why we started our shop.
Oh my gosh, that must feel amazing to you.
At the time, I was pitching to landlords, which people want to say, oh, Boba Guys is good at marketing because, oh, they created the strawberry matcha latte. They made a thing. Or they make their own boba in the U.S. That to me is cool, and I'm grateful for those achievements. But to me, I felt like the hardest thing that I don't think I've ever said this on any podcast, truly the hardest thing that I actually think about it, might have even been traumatizing, was the amount of conversations I've had with landlords slamming a door or shutting the door in our face because they wouldn't allow a boba shop to go into their places. And it was always coded. It was always like, oh, I don't think you would do well here.
Wow.
It was, oh, are you sure your audience would find you out here?
Wow.
And it was like proving to them that you have a juice shop, you have a coffee shop, but you can't put a boba shop in this plaza. So I give kudos to the landlords that believed in us, including this one, who was this store was a New York-based landlord. And I remember pitching him. And I said, you could put a coffee shop. It's a beautiful place for a coffee shop. We were designed like one. But I remember telling him, I'm like, it was our third store. And at the time, it was our biggest store yet. And I said, we only have 2 stores, but look at the lines out the door. Look at what we do. We bridge cultures. We bring people from different worlds together over boba. I don't think you've seen anything like us.
And how long ago was that?
This store was signed in 2013.
That's amazing.
Yeah, 2 years in.
So, I mean, what, 12 years? Trying to do the math here.
Yeah, it was tough. And even when we hit our first mall at the time, there weren't any boba shops like us in like prime placement in a mall. And then we're like anchors now where we go in first and then people put the co-tenancy around us. So they're like, oh, there's a Boba Guys in this mall. So then you put the restaurants and the shops using us as an anchor. It's crazy. I just think about it and I'm like, that to me is really where my co-founder and I are secretly more proud than like making strawberry matcha lattes.
Which are good, by the way. Yeah. So you talked about this. You didn't grow up with a lot of money. And so being able to see yourself open up 21 stores, what is that like for you and your parents?
I think I like to still to this day that money, fame, success, I don't know if you believe this, you are also, I've watched you on TV, it only magnifies your personality and your core DNA. So I've seen people, sadly, get corrupted by fame, money, and success. I think for us, I think my personality is at the core like very idealistic. I think my co-founder would say that about me, and so I think it maybe pushed my idealism and made me dream bigger. And so with my parents, I don't think I ever really celebrated it because I was always looking at the future. I think that's a problem with a lot of immigrant culture too, right?
Yeah, I have a hard time celebrating my successes.
Yeah,
I'm
people are
always
like-
like, well, what else is out there besides this?
Yeah. I mean, before this, I was like, but don't you have this other day job? And then I saw you, I used to grow up watching you on TV, and now
Yeah.
you're like, you have a podcast?
Yeah.
So I
Always
think,
got my hands in everything.
yeah, and I think that immigrant hustle and that mentality, I don't think ever stops. So I think it's a double-edged sword, right? So I hear a lot of entrepreneurs who are successful in their first venture, they keep on going.
Yeah.
Yet they are retired. I mean, they technically could retire, but they don't. And I think it's an engine that doesn't turn off. So my parents...
Preach, Andrew.
Yeah.
Preach. Seriously.
Yeah. Preach. So if you're listening and you're like crying or like saying, oh, that's me, don't worry. I think there's a lot of...
That's just the story of a lot
Yeah.
of children who immigrated here or whose parents immigrated here.
Yeah. And that's why I really mean this. Like my co-founder and I, again, we don't do a lot of media anymore because we're at a size where I think people just don't love hearing like these big companies talk or whatever. We're not even that big, but people assume we are. But what I would say is that we love building and inspiring. It's why I haven't sold to Starbucks or something like that. You know, like I think we would have done that a long time ago.
Have you ever been approached?
Yeah. Yeah. Easily.
That must feel cool.
Yeah. I will.
Did that feel like success? I mean, having a big company come to you and say, hey, would you ever sell?
It did, but it didn't. It's like the team that didn't draft you. And then they're like, I want you
to be part of the
be
team.
like, nah, you passed 15 other people
Yeah.
before me, So I think I felt a little bit like that. I think nowadays I'm inspired by, I'm always trying to grow. So, but what I would say is like, okay, I like what they did here. I like that from Starbucks. I like this from Blue Bottle. I like this from Steph Curry. I like this from my idols are like Barack Obama, Lin-Manuel Miranda. Like my DNA is very kind of like that. I sound a little bit like Will Smith, those kind of guys, and Oprah. So
Love Oprah.
You love Oprah? Is that why
Yeah.
we're doing this?
I mean, I always wanted to be Oprah.
These are the most, by the way, like heavy duty mics I've ever.
Oh, they were
Yeah.
not cheap.
Yeah, I've done some content, and this is like legit. I feel like the SNL anniversary was just going. And do you know the Culps? Where
Yeah.
Will Ferrell and a guest star. I feel like we're gonna do like a song.
We will.
with,
Maybe
like,
we will at the
ASMR.
end.
Yeah, that's great. It's like NPR. Great,
ASMR
great.
with Boba.
Yeah, Boba. Boba. So that's great. Yeah. So both my co-founder and I are really big fans of comedy, and we always text each other like a really good kind of like set. And it's because I think comedians are really good at reading culture, and I'd like to say that we try to be ahead. My team would actually say we're too far ahead, where I get in trouble because we say something that's going to happen, and it's too complex of a thought that people haven't really seen the pieces.
Can you talk about that? Like, give me an example.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna get me on an exclusive. I'll talk about one that I know everyone's asking me about, which is like my thoughts on San Francisco. In the early days, I think I might have mistakenly. I look back, I was mad because our stores kept on getting broken into, but I had called the city Gotham, right? And I meant it. People don't understand, like, because I'm a nerd, right? So I'm a comic book person. Like, Gotham is a city where it's both the establishment and the people and the police. They're all in cahoots. And so it's not one side, right? And I actually don't really love Bruce Wayne at all. I'm more of, they call it like a chaotic good. I actually like the Joker in Dark Knight. Like,
Oh, okay.
I know, it's a whole separate thing. But yeah. So
I feel like I'm going into like the nerdy Andrew
yeah, this
part
is
here.
a deep cut here. But when that happened, that's what was going on in my mind. And I was tired of getting broken into. And at the time, especially nowadays, I represent a lot of small businesses. That's my passion. And so I was kind of speaking on behalf of a lot of my other friends who were getting their stores broken into. And so at the time, I saw that, things were getting out of hand in San Francisco. That's what I saw. But when I saw the reaction, people were like, oh, he's out of touch. He doesn't know. He has insurance. I knew that we were becoming uninsurable, which to this day, people do not know this. Another exclusive. Most of your businesses are uninsurable in San Francisco, if not any of these area codes, because of what was happening. But I knew that because I'm an operator, but the public didn't know that. So I was way ahead, and so I just looked like I was out of touch. I'd like to say I wasn't, because I think now people have said, I've seen tweets where people are like, oh, Andrew, I guess Andrew from Boba Guys was right about San Francisco. It's been like 8 years. But at the time, I might have said it too early. So I think I learned that the hard way. Then I also realized, like, you know, I have to really think about the platform we have, which I didn't even think about the word. I hate the word platform. Like, if you know me, I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs do not think of platform. Most entrepreneurs like me, we're just builders. So because I don't have a social filter really for like being accepted, entrepreneurs don't really care what people think. So I don't really care what people think, you know, like that's why people like to project
But as you grew,
things.
your employee base grew, and then, you know.
Oh, now they tell me to not, like, even on podcasts, I'm sure they're like, oh, don't say that. And if people know me, like, I always have a reason. If there's one thing about my co-founder and I, we tend to be very neurotic and analytical about things. So it's rare that we might misread, but it's rare that we haven't thought of the angle.
Well, I mean, speaking of, we've seen a mass exodus of businesses in San Francisco because of everything. You're saying, oh no. I mean, how has it impacted your business? Because it can't be easy.
It hurt. And I want to say it's not just us. You know, it hurt a lot of...
And this all happened after the pandemic, mostly.
Yeah, I think a lot of big cities, not just SF, but it happened to be our big 3 cities, San Francisco, New York, and LA, where I have stores. They were all very impacted the same. It made it very hard to work. You know, my team, you know, for a while they couldn't even figure out if, you know, because of COVID, like, you know, if going to work was going to put them at risk. So we were very conscious and we were very conservative with the way we reopened stores, which some people might remember. We reopened too slowly, people say, or our critics say. And from that to, you know, supply chain was broken. So a lot of things went, you know, inflation went through the roof. People also said that about us where, oh, we were really early on the supply chain being broken because we're vertically integrated. So I have our own factory. So I could say like 5 months to a year ahead of time that something is going to be really expensive. And so I had said like there was going to be the supply chain problem. There's going to be a boba shortage. And then, you know, maybe...
Oh my gosh, I remember those headlines when there was a boba shortage.
And people thought we made it up. And some people were like, oh yeah, they're trying to, you know, create a monopoly. And I'm thinking... You know, I'm known to have like a love-hate relationship with media, but I'm like, if I really wanted to create a monopoly, I would have not said anything, honestly.
Yeah, you would have kept that to yourself.
Yeah, but I did it because, you know, I had friends who were asking me, where do I get boba from? Where do I get certain ingredients from?
Actually, I think I was a reporter. And
were you?
When that happened, yeah, and I did a story on that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Wait, did we repost? I think.
No, I didn't do it with you guys. It was another boba shop in San Jose because I was a South Bay reporter.
And I'm assuming they said it was real, right? No?
Yeah,
right.
yeah. No, this is real.
Some people said it was fake.
This is like when it actually happened.
Yeah. So I think all of those things that people do not think about as a pandemic-induced phenomenon, it was, in my opinion. And I get really nerdy, is that a lot of it was because the status quo and equilibrium broke. So like equilibriums exist because it's the going rate of something. But when you lose an idea of what the going rate, if I don't remember if the going rate of a shipping container was like $8,000 and then it kept on fluctuating between 15, 18, 20,000, I won't have the same type of discernment in how much something should cost. So I'll just pay whatever. So people were getting away with paying for things. Insurance is like that. Right now, I think I am really, really, really on this whole insurance, fixing health insurance. You know, anybody who makes money from other people's misery, I'm not into. And the amount of times where like you can get away with something just because, like, I'm not into it. Despite what people think on the internet of like, oh, he's a capitalist. You know, I went to Berkeley, undergrad and graduate. That will tell you a little bit of how I think. You know, I would have sold the money if it was about monopolies and about, you know, like pure profits. But like I don't get a lot of forums to have that long form because it's a long form answer. So thank you for that. But all of those things are factored into a simple thing like, yeah, the pandemic kind of screwed it up for a lot of businesses, and then it led into
all this domino effect.
Yeah.
So going back to Starbucks, did you see how Starbucks came out with boba drinks?
Oh yeah, we responded. Yeah.
What did you think about that? Was that in every single store, or was that just in some select stores?
If I remember,
which by the way, I did not try because I was very skeptical about that.
Oh, I had it right away. I got to do our homework.
Oh, okay. And how was it?
Man, I do not. Man, Starbucks lawyers are watching probably or listening. I objectively think it was too. They did something called popping boba essentially.
Yeah.
Which was on the outside it was an agar, which is like a seaweed. And so they didn't really do tapioca because Starbucks' infrastructure really can't handle tapioca because it requires cooking and straining, which their stores currently don't exist if you know how they're built. So if you know, like if you're an operator, like in my world, like you would know that they would have a hard time doing tapioca. So they had to do things out of like a bucket that, it's manufactured somewhere offsite, and then we make everything on site, but they had to manufacture it off site. And so you kind of start out with a little bit of a disadvantage. So I'm giving them a break, but it wasn't good. So
non-tapioca bobas.
But they're hurting, so they're trying to innovate. So I understand the business perspective of what they're trying to do.
So
they
I
had
wasn't
it for
missing
a summer.
I wasn't missing.
No. I get asked all the
they
time.
didn't have it for very long.
No, I think it was just this summer. Jack in the Box, I think, still has it.
Oh.
And I love my sourdough jacks, and I've gotten it a couple times.
Is that pretty good?
Yeah, I want that sourdough, that Jack in the Box sponsorship.
No, I mean their boba.
I want both. I want the churros that Jack in the Box sells, and the boba. Although I think our boba is way better, and their sourdough jack.
Okay, so someone's doing it right out there.
For their price point, I think I give them credit.
So why do you think boba became such a trend, and not really a trend because it's been here to stay? Why do you think people continue to drink boba?
Well, that's a great question. I don't really know. I remember getting told on a panel, this is a true story, like a very well-known founder was on a panel with me, and they called boba a fad. Yeah, I was on a panel with him, and I know him. And I don't think he intentionally meant it as like being derisive, but I chuckled, and then I kind of called it out right after when I got the mic back. And I remember to this day, and he's really good at what he does. And so I think, to me, it's like why certain trends catch on, certain things don't. I do think enough people drink boba, drink milk tea. Milk tea, it's just boba most of the time is just milk tea or fruit tea, matcha, or even coffee nowadays. And then it's technically a dessert kind of thing that you put inside of it. Because pudding, a lot of people don't know, but like boba in Southeast Asian culture, like sago, pudding, all the fruits that you have if you're Filipino, like in your halo-halo. If you're, Southeast Asian Vietnamese, you use basil seeds or all these different things.
I know. I feel like all Asian countries have their version, right?
Yeah, exactly. And part of it was through, like a little bit of colonization, right? The Portuguese, the French, the Spanish had their own kind of dessert culture. So the custards and flan came together, and that's kind of why they're very, very similar.
Love me some flan in my boba.
Right, exactly. I love the egg pudding. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. So I think, to me, when you see it as that, I think boba is just very accessible. That's essentially our narrative. When I used to do press in the early days, I'd be like, you've had milk tea, and you've had this dessert. Trust me, you've had flan. But you've also had, a tea with milk, English breakfast tea. I don't get how everybody thinks it's so crazy. That being said, the way we do it is very unique, but I wanted to make it acceptable so that you can even bring it back to the office. So that was one of the big things that I never really shared was when I worked in corporate, I would bring coffee, I'd do a coffee run, and I'd bring it back to my meeting, and nobody would give me any side eye or anything because it's normal. 3 o'clock coffee run, do my 4 o'clock meeting, and then I'm having a coffee in my hand while I'm running the meeting. Well, I did it a couple times in the early days, and I didn't have Boba Guys. It was just me going to Chinatown in Oakland where I worked, and I would bring it back, and guess what? People right away would be like, "Why are you drinking boba in this meeting?" Or like, "Oh," and somebody would be like, "Oh, I heard boba, Andrew. I heard you ran the meeting with boba in your hand," and I was like a thing. What we always tried to do was make boba seem more like a staple, right? You can drink boba 3 times a week, 4 times a week. You can drink milk tea, and you can drink coffee every day, right? Why can't you drink milk tea every day? With boba, you don't have to have tapioca all the time. You can have it with, today I had like chia seeds. I drink a lot of chia seeds.
Mine doesn't have boba too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Just
so
the tea.
that still counts as a boba drinking. I can put almond jelly, it's a little healthier, grass jelly, mochi. So those are those things you can drink every day. So to us, part of what we've, I think, did in the last decade was we made boba more of a staple. And we kind of like did a lot of our storytelling around that. That's why matcha had been such a big focus for us, because we knew that when we started, matcha was just getting big. And so in most boba shops, they would not talk about matcha, right? I don't know if you remember, but I didn't drink matcha in like quickly.
Oh yeah, that was just like,
Yeah.
in the last few years that matcha has become a staple for every drink
Cafe.
store. Yeah.
Starbucks, Pete's, they all have it. For us, we that was it, and that was why we needed to. We're like, okay, if we have an angle where we can make a drink that's every day, matcha oat milk with strawberry, that's kind of our famous drink. Well, maybe we can get people to think about boba in a different way and kind of like rebrand the whole category. So I think the first generation of anything is always like you just break open the category. I think that's Tapioca Express. I think it's the first set of mom and pops quickly. I think we're kind of second generation, where what we did was we kind of like made it we kind of broke open the category. And then I think we're in third generation, where the third generation of boba shops are kind of colliding with coffee shops, where you can't really distinguish the difference between a boba shop and a high-end cafe. Like, they're becoming all the same.
I mean, no one bats an eye anymore if you bring boba to the office
Yeah.
instead of a coffee.
Yeah, but if my Clorox colleagues are watching, I remember you all. You were like, "Oh, Andrew brought boba in the office today."
Is that where you worked?
Yeah, I worked at Clorox at Oakland. So I would bring back my friend Yating, who sat next to me. She was Asian, but some of them weren't. So I'm not going to name the ones who would make comments. And it was not negative. It was just more of like,
Well, why are you bringing this? Not
yeah,
coffee?
that's different. Oh, that's cute. Oh, that's cute. And so I'm like, man, just say it's normal.
Yeah.
You know? And that's kind of like my MO.
So do you think that you essentially made boba a staple,
I
at
don't
least
kn-
on the West Coast?
I think we helped. I think why we opened in New York was we were really early in the media market there. I would say, I don't think it was just us. I feel like maybe a handful of us were the first gen category.
So do you think boba is here to stay?
I think so. I sure hope so. But I think so, because I think it's very accessible.
So last few questions for you. Where do you see Boba Guys going?
I see Boba Guys. I hope it's still around in another 20 years. My favorite company in the world is Patagonia. Yvon Chouinard. He's kind of like who I really want to be. He has a company. He always says, "I want to build a 100-year-old company." My co-founder that's his favorite CEO too, and it's because he was able to keep the ethos of his company around for a really long time. And I think, for us, some people don't like our mission is to bridge cultures. I've actually gotten a lot of criticism because in some parts, and that's probably where most of the people can't see nuance. I've gotten a lot of criticism because they think that we don't take a side or something. And in today's youth, they want us to take a side. I'm like, sometimes you can't. I do take a side on many things. And saying I won't take a side is already taking a side, because it means that if you're that angry about me for not taking a side, that proves to me that I took a side, right? Because otherwise I just pander to you.
Yeah.
And I've been around long enough where I don't pander. And again, it goes back to the theme of like, in order to do what we do, bridge cultures, you have to see things a lot more nuanced and a lot more you have to see how the matrix works. And so you have to see how the game works. And I think, people are talking about Kendrick Lamar in the Super Bowl. Well, yeah, he described that it's a game. But that's, yes, an allegory. But in real life, each little piece, each little experience for what minority you are, for if you're a woman, if you're disabled, if you're a small business owner, there's all these different dynamics that come into one person's identity. And those are all going to come into play with somebody else who has a completely different set of cards. And you're expecting you to come out with the same outcome, with the same stimuli. Not going to happen.
Right.
And I think that is what I try to teach to our hundreds of team members, employees. And then with our platform, we use a version of that. We have a lot of symbolism in our own company where we talk about layers a lot because our drinks are all layered. Like, people don't know. We have Easter eggs that we planted a decade ago that we have yet to reveal. Yeah. We just did one actually the other day. 2 weeks ago, we had a coin. I'll end with this. We had a coin that said 1882. And we gave out these coins years ago. People forgot that we gave these coins out. I never, ever explained it until this Lunar New Year. And we used this number throughout our kind of storytelling before. The number is 1882. And it's the year of the Chinese Exclusion Act.
Okay.
But 99.9% of the people, even if you're Chinese, don't even know. But the first minority group that was ever excluded in the country, first ever, was Chinese Exclusion Act. I don't think people expect to come to a boba shop for a TED Talk. I know this. My team doesn't even care. But for us, we care. And maybe it won't mean anything for the millions of people who come every year. But if 10 people listening to this or on our Instagram post that we revealed, we got a lot of comments that are like, oh, no wonder. It reminds people to kind of think harder, to give people like a second look.
Pause. Yeah.
And that's a story of immigrants.
Yeah.
It's a story of any marginalized group. It's a story of boba. Boba is a marginalized in a way. I don't think people want to say it. I don't want to make it serious, but it's also a product that's from the margins from a minority group culture that was in the margins.
It's a story of our history.
Yeah. And then we're not even getting into the politics of like China, Taiwan, and Taiwan was a colony by the Dutch and the Japanese. So that, to me, was always in the lore of Boba Guys.
So when did you reveal what that coin
That one,
symbolized?
like 2 weeks ago.
On Instagram, or?
I think on Instagram, yeah. I think I wrote on Instagram the other
And
day.
you have more Easter eggs coming.
Oh, I have a lot more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. My co-founder is like, at the time, I'll tell you where it came from. Here's an Easter egg. We had a shirt that was a direct reference to Taylor Swift. The shirt said, look what you made me brew. Yeah. It's like a dad joke. But
Definitely a dad joke.
it was because Taylor Swift at the time in 2016-17 was being known for putting Easter eggs in her music.
Yeah.
That was Easter egg of a Taylor Swift Easter egg.
I love it.
And so, yes, we're not the only ones who do it, but people love Taylor, people love Kendrick. Like we look up to them too. We're like, okay, what are they doing? So, yeah, they make great music. They have a message. We make good, decent boba, I hope. But they're doing something deeper. They're speaking for, small businesses. They're doing something about, immigrants. We had a very layered. We use the word layer a lot on purpose. We have a very kind of layered approach to a lot of our business.
Okay, well, I'll be looking out for the next Easter egg. Okay, I have the last few questions for you. Okay, what is your most popular boba drink that you sell?
That we sell is a black milk tea, classic milk tea.
Really?
Yeah.
With nothing in it, or with boba?
With boba, with tapioca.
With boba, okay. You, Andrew, matcha or taro?
Ooh. I actually want to make you this. It was a matcha on top of ube, which is similar to taro.
Oh,
it's
awesome.
a matcha ube, yeah.
Is that your favorite, though?
That's one of my favorites, yes.
Okay, what is your favorite drink?
Something similar. So I love ube.
Okay.
I grew up in Daly City, so shouts out to Daly City, South City peeps.
Filipinos.
Yeah, I know Filipinos. So I had a lot of ube growing up. So it's an ube coffee, banana milk with espresso on top.
Whoa.
It's really good, yeah.
I talk about layers. Wow.
Yeah, it looks really pretty. Very layered as a drink. We call it the founder's favorite.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Founder, obviously.
Yeah, I have one, he has one, but it's like
Okay.
founder's favorite Andrew,
Yeah.
founder's favorite Ben, yeah.
Oh, I got to try that.
Yeah.
I got to try that sometime. Banana milk?
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Okay. Boba or popping boba?
Oh, we have our own tapioca factory, so tapioca for sure.
Okay, so far from the brain that you made in the beginning.
Yeah, we've gotten better. Actually, thankfully, a lot of trial and error, a lot of good, we had a factory manager that's amazing, food scientists that helped us make it better. But for the most part, it's, I think, perfected. We sell, I don't even know the number, millions of balls for sure, but I wonder if it's in billions, how many balls we make.
I had no idea you guys make your own tapioca balls, by the way, your own boba. Yeah. Okay, boba in the morning or at night?
Night.
Yeah?
Yeah, we gotta you gotta have boba as you gotta have boba on a date. You gotta have boba with your friends.
Okay.
It's like a, I don't know how to explain it, but there's we were
like
talking.
A social aspect.
Yeah, there's a whole context in which boba lives. I feel like the best versions of that are always at night.
But boba in the morning's good too, right? Like you said.
I want, what I have in the morning? I have a lot, as I said, chia seeds in the morning.
Okay.
So I do
boba
a lot of
seeds.
chia seeds or maybe aloe in the morning.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds healthy.
Yeah.
Okay, last question.
Uh-huh.
What's the next boba flavor, or what's the next boba drink coming out? Can you tell us?
Let me see an exclusive. Let me. I knew when I was talking to an ex-reporter, I'd be like, she's gonna ask for an exclusive. I'll give you an exclusive. Yeah. Let me think. I actually lose track of what season we're in.
Okay.
Because we build
we're
2
coming
to 3
up in
seasons
spring.
out. Spring. We have mangoes coming back. We do things that are related to kind of each season. But no, what's this big special one?
What do you want to see boba do next?
Okay. Actually, I know what we're doing. Sorry. I'll tell you what we're doing.
Okay.
So a lot of drinks, as we said, are coffee meets kind of like the boba. Mm-hmm. So not coffee meets bagel, but coffee meets boba. And then in that kind of intersection, you're seeing a lot more like what we call garnishes or kind of like little flares to a drink. So our drinks are going to have, I'm not going to blow people's minds because they're going to be flavors that we've had: coconut, mango, tropical, passion fruit. Stuff that people have had. I think they're going to enjoy it. But we're going to dress it up a lot more. So they look a lot more like these high-end coffee shops that we're used to.
People
in
are into
LA.
aesthetic these days.
Yes, very. Yeah, exactly. So we're going to do that where we already tried, we're current drinks, we have a Midori chocolate drink where we put chocolate shavings now.
Oh, awesome.
And, back in the day, 10, 13 years ago, you wouldn't put that kind of stuff on boba drinks. Now everybody's kind of doing it. Well, not everyone. A lot of people are. We started doing it about a couple of years ago, but now we're going to full on do it.
That sounds so luxurious.
Yeah, kind of bougie. Plays into the stereotypes that all the critics talk about.
I'm bougie though, so I'm definitely your audience.
Well, if we have bougie organic Strauss organic milk, I think we got to lean into the fact that I know it's hard times, so I got to acknowledge that. But I don't know. We're a lot of people. We get tagged every day on Instagram and TikTok. We're a lot of people's treat.
People like to escape.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, yeah. So
if they can do that with a drink, they're going to do it with a drink.
Yeah. So we should dress it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we gotta. Right now we have these cool sleeves where, and these gift bags. These are things that are not even coffee shops do, but we kind of had some bells and whistles because it's part of a collaboration we're doing with a video game company. I was like, would you want to split, some costs on these bags? Because I think bags are collectibles and I want people to reuse our bags. I want our bags to be so cool that they're going to reuse our bags.
Oh, you mean like Lululemon
and
things like that. Okay.
And it's the second week of this one or first week, but we're going into number 2 and it's doing well. And I think that's how we think. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. A lot of layers.
Yeah. So, you're so smart. Let's cheers to that.
Cheers.
All right. Ube and.
You got ube and I think oat milk or coconut
and oat milk.
Probably coconut milk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Less sweet. Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
I'm drinking a more sweeter, lightened Hong Kong milk tea.
This is good. I like it.
We puree our own ube.
Oh gosh.
Every day.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Good job. What'd you think, Andrew?
Great. You're so easy. You're natural.